Hearts of Iron 4 recently released the downloadable content Götterdämmerung, and if you're watching this video, you probably got interested and downloaded it and tried to play the tutorial and are overwhelmed with how large this game is. So let's walk through this and hopefully I can help explain it a little bit better than the tutorial. To get there, we're going to hit single player and then tutorial, and it's going to load us up as Italy. Italy's a nice nation for a tutorial because you're not one of the major players, but you have a lot of potential. And at this point in time, Italy is also at war with Ethiopia, so that gives you an opportunity to get your feet wet without an enemy that is actually difficult to capitulate. Um, Step one on the tutorial, you can see it's actually more like 6 steps because there's 6 objectives. You have their wiki you can read. The wiki has a lot of information, but that isn't necessarily as easy as watching someone else do it. Before we really dive in, I'm going to do a couple core things that I use to set up my games when I get started. If I wasn't recording a video, I'd hit this music icon in the top right, open up a menu and hit pause and play my own podcast or music in the background while playing. Above that, you have the date, and you can see it's flashing with a paused icon. Below it, there's different steps. So the first step, second, third, and fourth are set intervals where it takes a certain amount of time to go through each hour of the game. I call the hours steps. Every hour, the game rolls or calculates and rolls random numbers as needed for all the nations. And this is for battles and production and everything. And then the fifth one, where it's red, that one tells the game to run as fast as your computer will allow it. I like to run it on the fastest setting, and then I have it set up to pause on notifications. And then I'll hit space bar as pause or on pause to stop or let the game play out as needed. So if I hit escape under game options and then game, you can see there's an option for pause and notifications. That's how I get the game to pause on notifications. I find that really useful. It used to be even more useful when war justifications would pop up a notification, but at the current version of the game, they called it notification spamming. That no longer causes the game to pause, which is unfortunate, but not necessary for learning how to play. So let's start going through all these objectives. We'll start with the military factories. So up here on the top left, you have the flag of your country, and then a bunch of different buttons. To the right of it, if you hover over them, it'll give you a tooltip on what they mean. In order to assign our factories, we're going to go to this wrench and a gear icon, which is for production. You can also see these tooltips will give you the shortcuts. Right now, we have no factories assigned. And then hitting this menu option also popped up information about production lines. This is good information. However, it is also overwhelming as a new player due to the amount of info. So let's just click don't show this again for now. In the meantime, we have military factories and dockyards. You can see we have 0 out of 20 for military factories and 0 out of 15 for dockyards. We're going to get those building things. So for the dockyards, hit the anchor with the plus to start a new line. And I'm going to assign 5 dockyards to convoys and you can choose how many by clicking in here. Then I'm going to start a second one, building these submarine hulls. And then when I click this, a second menu comes up where you assign a military industrial organization. I'm going to choose submarine designer, and that will accrue experience to that military industrial organization. You can see we have a tooltip for that. That was added last year as part of Arms Against Tyranny. Those will be useful, and we'll talk about the military industrial organizations more later. Useful but not necessary for playing the game as a beginner. So now you can see we have 15 out of 15 dockyards assigned. I'm now going to click on this anchor icon with a wrench. And up here at the top, you can see there's a little dockyard with a wrench icon on it and a 4. I'm going to press and hold shift, and you can see that that changes the plus and minus by 10. And I'm going to click plus twice so we have 15. And what that does is it makes it so that if my ships get damaged and they need to come back to port to repair, they have priority, and they'll take away dockyards assigned to these submarines and convoys to repair them first. I have the convoys above the submarines because I want a priority on creating the convoys. They're not really needed for the first stage of the game, but once you get past Ethiopia, you're going to need them for World War II. Okay, now in the meantime, this little infantry helmet artillery piece with a plus, we're going to click that. We're going to do infantry equipment, and we're going to choose infantry weapons manufacturer to make sure that MIO gets some experience. We're going to go back, going to hit trains, and we're going to bring that up to the top. The reason that I'm choosing trains now, even though we have a stockpile, if you look here by the picture on the right, you see we have 23 in inventory. I'm starting to create them now because you can see starting out, we're only going to produce 1 a year. And if this production efficiency bar up here, all this red space and a little bit of green, over time, the red will become green, which means the efficiency is increasing. So if I start now, by the time World War II starts and my trains are being destroyed, we should be up to around that 60% cap. And then for the same reason, we're going to choose stuff like towed artillery and assign the artillery military industrial organization and anti-air. Even though we're not really going to use these now, I want to start building up that efficiency. And then the support equipment, we'll definitely need that. And trucks, we will wait until after Ethiopia capitulates because, well, we'll grab this real quick and look at it. If you look at it, you see it takes rubber. We currently don't have any rubber, so we're not going to be very efficient at producing these. Ethiopia has some rubber available, but for the time being, we'll just cancel that line. And then aircraft, it'd be nice to build some of these, but looking at them, you can see the required resources of aluminum and rubber. We currently don't have rubber. And then tanks could be useful, but not as useful as getting a bunch of infantry equipment because we're already in a deficit of 5,500. So let's reorganize these a little bit. I like to put the ones that you always want to be producing at the top, because if factories get damaged or you lose territory, then the ones at the bottom will automatically have them removed. So for like infantry equipment, usually you want that somewhere towards the top, but for now I don't really care. I'm going to hit the 5x, so when I click, it'll assign 5 factories at a time. When I went from 1 to 5, there's still 1 assigned even though it says 5, so I click it again and you can see I went from 5 military factories to 9 used. Let's go 5 on support equipment. We'll go 10 on infantry equipment. And we go up to the top. This trade icon, that will tell us what we're using. So we have 2. So I'm interested in tungsten because that's used in artillery. And we have 1 available. I'm going to unpause the game for a second real quick. Okay, so still have 1. Our exported went from -1 to 0. So we still have 1 more available for artillery. Might as well use that. And I'm going to do 1 more on anti-air because eventually that will be important. Okay. I'm going to unpause and pause it again real quick, and everything's green, so everything's produced at maximum efficiency. You can produce stuff even if you don't have the resources, but it will be produced at a reduced rate. And if you try to produce something with a lot of a resource you don't have, then hardly anything will be produced. Okay, so let's go to construction. Let's go to the excavator, and it says we need to have 20 civilian factories in use. Right now it says that 10 out of 21 are used, and the 10 that are used are for civilian goods. We'll talk about that more later. But for the time being, we want to produce some of the military factories. Usually you want to build your civilian factories for a couple years first and then switch over, but in my opinion it's much more fun to play aggressively, so we're going to go this route. And with military factories selected, I'm going to press and hold the shift key and then left click on a region. I'm going to choose Toscana and Lazio, and that maxed out both of them. When you look at these, you can see the building slots, 5 of 8, and then the +3 is what is in building. And this one has 5 of 6, +1 is the one I'm building. It is better to max out infrastructure before building other buildings in these provinces, and that is for efficiency purposes. When infrastructure is maxed out, the factories will build faster. However, we're going to look at our national focuses. So if we click on our flag in the top left, it'll pull up our political menu, and you have this select the national focus option. Okay, so right here, it is making a suggestion as to what we do, and it's recommending that we get a research slot as quickly as possible, and that is an excellent idea. So we're actually going to rush down here, but this first one, it says Italian highways, that's going to max out the infrastructure in those 2 provinces where we're building factories, so that's why I didn't change the infrastructure there, or build the infrastructure there first. Okay, we need to train some troops for deployment. So if we look at this tank with the down arrow, this is where we train new divisions. This first one with an infantry helmet, if you hit edit, you can see what it consists of. Starting out, that would be your basic infantry used for advancing. We look at this Camicia. I don't know how to pronounce that, but you can see that this is a militia unit. Those are not as useful. You have this tank one, which is really good for punching through lines, but it's easier just to have a more generic template being produced and then switch them out as needed. So let's train these infantry. We'll set them there. Okay, so if we look on the right here, it's the priority. I like to set reinforcements to high priority. And garrisons is usually medium or low. They are needed, but if you really need troops on the front line, something like this where reinforcements are first, training divisions is second, garrisons is last, would work quite well for you. Okay, and technology. So to do that one, you have this one icon with the slash through the center of it. We're going to left click on that, and then we're going to select the technology to research. Right now, you can see that there's 3 tabs highlighted, and it's actually highlighting the most logical starting point for research. So go ahead and choose these highlighted ones. When choosing support weapons 1, currently we don't want to research with the military industrial organization. If you choose to research with the military industrial organization, you can see, mousing over it, the time it takes to research it is reduced, but you're also paying, this icon stands for political power per day. You need your political power to fill out this stuff under the political section, and that is more important than getting those technologies researched in the beginning. Once you get a few years into the game, then at that point you're going to have excess political power to spend on research. So going back, let's go to engineering, choose electronic mechanical engineering, and then industry, basic machine tools, industry, construction 1. Okay, so now it's talking about how to use the camera. Basically, you can drag the mouse to the corners of the screen, and you can see it's trying to get us to focus down here on Etria, or Etria. You can also use the arrow keys on the keyboard to move around. It wants us to select all these divisions. In order to do that, we're going to left click and drag a box. And then down here at the bottom of the screen, the little green plush that's pulsating, we're going to right click on that, and that's going to assign all these units to an army. And then we're going to take that army with it selected, and we're going to right click on this new pulsating green plus, and that's going to give them an army group. So I just clicked on the army. You can see there's a portrait that's not filled. That's for the general of it. If I click on the bigger one, that's for the commander of the army group. You can see it selects the general as well. We're going to go ahead and assign somebody with decent defensive capabilities. Okay, now I'm going to go through, and in this army group, you can see here on the left, there's different types. If you look, the little pictures quickly represent the different template that is used for each division. I'm going to double click on one of these with the infantry helmet to select all those, and I'm going to right click and create a new army. And then so the icon that's highlighted is the frontline icon. I'm going to go back to this first army of lesser quality troops and click on front line. or you could hit Z, and you can see on the map that these lines flashing are anywhere you could place these troops. I want to keep them in this area, so I'm going to left click on that. You can see it set up a front line. Now I'm going to hit X, or the offensive line button, and then I'm going to choose, it wants me to draw a line in between these two, call them tiles. They're smaller than provinces, so we'll call them tiles. So right click on one and press and hold, and then slowly drag it across, and then release, and you can see that it's set up. The starting point here is this line up here, then there's an arrow pointing to where you want them to go. And while you're here, there's second from the left button is how the battle plan is executed. Generally, if you execute a battle plan automatically, having it advance aggressively is going to work better because all the units attack at once. So go ahead and click that and change it to aggressive. We're not going to mess with the air wing yet. We're going to look at these units in the south, and we're going to give them another army. I'm going to hit Z, click on that front line there, hit X, and then do the right click and drag to set up where they're going. And we're going to give them a defensive commander or general. So on the top of all your generals when you're searching, you can see these three icons to organize by their traits. And I have the shield selected as the filter or sort. I'm not going to choose this top guy because he has really good attack, so I want to use him for the armies I'm going to attack with later. So we'll choose this guy. Defensive. Okay, this other 6 units that I have set aside, that would be where my 4-3, 4 attack, 3 defense general, I want him. And then I'm going to click on this fallback line icon, or C, and then I'm going to right click and drag up here across these 2 tiles. And I'm taking those 6 units that I pulled out of the first army group of 18. I'm telling them to go there because I want to train them up. This is a good example. We'll look back at the first army group. These little guys with the clover means that they're experience level 1. And that means that they have a negative 20% or 25% modifier in combat. The next level up, experience level 2 trained. And then the little starred, those would be regulars, and they get a plus 25% in combat. So I want to take these guys that I pulled out of the line and get the ones that are experience level 2 trained up to experience level 3 regular. Training can only take you up to experience level 3, but there are higher levels that units can gain through combat. Okay. So with those armies set aside, let's look at these icons in the top where we have a hand with a wrench, a couple red soldiers, a gavel, and some other icons. And these are different issues that you currently have. Soldiers mean that they're unassigned divisions, so if you press and hold the shift button and left click on that, it's going to select everything that is currently unassigned, and I am actually going to take them and assign them all to the division that I have training in this area. And you can see that there's 27 out of 24 under that army now. That means that he has more divisions than he can properly control. When you over-assign like this, then that general loses their positive traits, so we need to get rid of some of them. And that works because I want to move some of these divisions into the south as well. I took out the tanks by double clicking and then right clicking on the army group to assign a new one, and I'm going to take the horses as well. The reason I'm doing that is because when you take this army group, click on the fallback line and drag a fallback line by this port here to train down there. The tanks will perform much better in the plains around here. If you look up at the north of Ethiopia, it looks mountainous. And if you hover over, you can see it says a mountain province. Looking back at this army group training up in the north, you can see these little mountain icons. Those are mountaineer units. So we definitely want to leave them in the north. I'm going to take a couple more infantry and send them south though. So if I click on one and press and hold shift, I can select a couple more. And then I'm going to right click on that army group that I created. And I want to assign a general. And I would like to use somebody that is good with tanks if we have one. And it doesn't look like it. However, this guy's actually pretty good. I'm hovering over the different icons and seeing what they mean. This general gives bonuses for attacking forts and rivers. Rivers are a disadvantage to attack over, so that is very useful to have that general if you can assign them to the proper regions. Let's see. So it's kind of nitpicking. Oh, my 4-3 guy is actually the Panzer leader. So let's switch him over. He'll be reassigned. Then we can choose a new general for this group. Choose this guy that's good at going over rivers and attacking forts. Okay. Now we can click on the army group and choose a field marshal. And we'll just pick this guy because he is the best, and he's also a desert fox, so he does well in this dry region. And you can see, so what I did was I hit the little plus on him to assign a new trait since he has it available. But we currently don't have any command power, and that's straight up in the middle. This little telephone with a 0, that's command power. You can also look at that profile for the field marshal by going to his picture when you have the army group selected and then choosing this little icon of a guy. And now bring that up. So I have to let the game play out a little bit to get that. In the meantime, I'm going to choose these two armies that are on fallback lines. And I'm going to press and hold shift, and I'm going to click the exercise icon. And then I'm going to do the same thing for this army. You can now see that there's this gear running with a little red circle with an X through it. That means that they're going to exercise until everyone has the highest level of experience possible and then quit. You want to do it this way because if you set them to just train, they'll train forever and that'll use up equipment. In some versions of the game, that is really useful for gaining army experience, but in this version, it's pretty much a trickle, so we won't worry about that too much. Okay, let's go to the next tip. It wants us to move our airplanes down to the Ethiopian theater. So I'm going to use this as an opportunity to consolidate all the air wings as well. I'm just going to left click, drag a big box over everything and release. I'm going to go down here to this air base right above the Ethiopia. And then I'm going to right click on that icon, and you can see now there's lines going for where those planes are moving. I am going to hit the space bar to unpause. You can see the planes going there, and they're increasing the numbers, and then hit spacebar to pause again. So there's too many planes at this airbase, but that's fine because I'm going to drag, do the left click, drag and release, select everything. I'm going to hit G to merge the air wings, or there's also this merge icon up here you can use. And now that everything's merged up, I can kind of see what we have. And if you hover over the pictures, you can see what exactly they are. And it looks like there's a bunch of different versions of stuff, but it's kind of simplified to close air support, fighters, and medium bombers. And we want to select a couple of these, like these tactical bombers. I'm going to take those, I'm going to hit the delete icon to remove those. And what I'm doing is, when we train them up, we're going to lose some to attrition, and when we go to war, we'll lose some to attrition. So I want to go ahead and make sure that I have some in my stockpiles to replace those that are lost. I'm going to delete one of these fighter groups as well. Let's see, do we have any other aircraft? Okay. And that gets our air base down to below 600 planes. If you have more than that number, you'll have issues with them actually performing what you tell them to. And then now that we have them all selected again, press and hold shift and click pilot exercises, and you can see they have that little training icon with a red X meaning they'll quit. If you train them without press and holding shift, you will eventually work your air wings down to nothing as they lose fighters. Okay, so now the tutorial is telling us we need to assign the air wings to this Danakil region, but I want to train them up before doing that. Meantime, on the bottom right here, it's your different map modes. If you hover over them, you can see you have the shortcuts, which are the different F keys. F1 is your infantry, F2 is your naval, and F3 is your aircraft. And then there's a bunch of other map modes which you can get into as you get more into the game. They aren't really needed for this early stage. I'm going to hit F2 and look at the Navy and talk about that real quick. This isn't needed for this portion of the game, but they will eventually, so I'm going to train them up now. What I'm doing is I'm sorting out the submarines from the capital ships. The submarines play their own roles and are better separated from the other ships of the fleet. And now looking at these ships, you can see they all generally have the same skill level, except for this guy, which I'm going to separate out. And I'm doing that since ships require a lot of fuel for training. I don't want to train other ships that are at skill level 3 just to get that skill level 1 ship up to skill level 3. And then clicking on the anchor at the left side of the menu, or of the naval fleet, I guess. Anyways, so we can assign a commander for the submarines. I'm going to choose this guy with the submarine. You can see there's a plus on his picture to assign traits later, but we don't have command power. Now let's go to the anchor for the top group. And for him, I want somebody that's good at battleships. We'll also sort it out by attack skill level. So both of these have battleship adherent. These top two would be good choices. However, this Carlo has gunnery expert as well. And he's got Ironside for capital ship armor. So I'll choose him. With the commanders or admirals set, I'm going to do the same thing for training. And now I'm going to unpause the game and let it run. And looking at this top bar, let's talk about that for a quick second. On the left, that's political power, and then stability and war support. And those two, if you hover over them, you can see what they affect. Those are kind of slightly more advanced than what this tutorial is, but something you need to start looking into quickly because of how they affect your political power and your factory output. And then, so stability affects your political power gain, factory output, dockyard, resistance gain, and war support when you're at war affects your stability. So that's how those two play into each other. And then your manpower is how many troops you can train. You can change your conscription laws, factories, and then the fuel is really important. Logistics fulfillment and convoys. Convoys are not important right now, but they will be later. So you can see our fuel went from like it'll have full reserves in a year and a half to now quickly being depleted because we're training all of our aircraft, troops, and ships. In order to avoid issues with that, I'm going to hit this trade button and we're going to go to oil and I'm going to trade for some oil. I usually like to choose somebody that we won't be at war with anytime soon, but there's not a lot of choices this early in the game, so I'll just choose British Malaya. And what I did there was I clicked on the country name, and it has this little sliding bar on the left and right. They have 10 available, and we were getting 0. What I did was I slid that to the right, and in increments of 8, you can get 8 for one factory. So I can do one factory for 8 or 2 factories for 10. 2 factories for 10 isn't worth it, so I'm just going to take the 8, and then I'm going to unpause and see what that does. This event popped up, and we're going to choose the bottom option because I like those bonuses where we get heat attrition and supply consumption are not as great. So let's look and see what this fuel is doing. You can see it's still draining very quickly. Let's also grab some fuel from Venezuela on pause, and that lengthened it a little bit. We're also going to click on recruit and deploy. That wasn't what I wanted, so let's click the next one over, this little notepad, logistics. And down at the bottom, you can see that we can prioritize fuel. I like to have the Army as green, high prioritization, air, medium, and Navy low. And you can see these bars represent how much fuel each is getting, and then the stockpile. So our stockpile is dwindling, but some of our ships went into repair, so now all of a sudden our stockpile is building back up. Let's hit F3 and check our naval or air wings, and they're still training. Okay, now the Italian highways are complete. Let's click on this icon in the top middle, the question mark. We're going to head towards that expand national universities for the research slot. So railway innovations is next. Let's on pause and let it continue. And we're really just waiting for our aircraft to finish training. Okay, we have a couple that are complete. Now they're all complete. So I have all the aircraft selected, so all the options available for them are highlighted. We're going to click on Logistic Strike, which is the airplane dropping bombs. We're going to click on this tank as well for close air support, and then we're going to click on this fighter for air superiority. And that kind of tells us what these different wings do. In order to get through this step of the tutorial, we need to assign all these guys to this region. So I just right-clicked on Danakil, and that brought us to the next step. It wants us to select an army. So we select that army. It's basically trying to get us to execute a battle plan, but I'm not quite ready yet. My armies are almost prepped where I want them to be. Let's go back to F3 for the airplanes and look at those again real quick. I don't want them assigned to this region because once my armies get out of that region, they will no longer support them. So what I'm going to do is choose this air wing, and I'm going to right click on this army group right here, Army Group 2, this training. And now that fighter wing is assigned to that army group, and it will follow them around. I'm going to take the other fighter wing and assign it to the army group that has the tanks. And now I'm going to take two wings of close air support and assign it to both of the army groups that I assigned the fighter planes. Basically, I want those armies to have a lot of punch, and the other armies are just there for support. Let this go a little bit longer in training, and see, I'm just kind of waiting for 4 more of those two to become experienced, or regular I should say. 1 more to become regular. Okay, so now we're going to click on this training gear and have it stop. And I need to stop training because you look at these divisions, there's a green bar and a red bar. The green bar is organization, and that is equivalent to stamina in other games you're probably more familiar with. And then the red bar, which is fighting strength, is a measurement of equipment fulfillment. So going back to other games, that'd kind of be like armor strength or the hit points on a sword, really. Before you go into battle, you want to have full stamina and full equipment if possible. If we zoom in, you can see that we have this blue line and it says no divisions, and that's because I assigned the divisions to this fallback line first. So I'm going to right click on delete order, or the trash can, and I'm going to hit OK to delete all orders. And now I'm going to hit that Z again and hit X. And down here for this other group, I'm going to tell them to stop training, and we're going to right click the trash can to delete orders. One thing I want to point out real quick is if I select a division before hitting Z and then X, and I zoom in, you can see there's only one division selected. I'm going to reselect that army to make sure I have everything. If I press and hold Control, I can left click on that, and you can see the 8 divisions are assigned. So the 2 horse divisions not having much stamina per se isn't a big deal, but it is nice to let these units get on the front line and build up their preparation. So this blue bar right next to the experience level is their preparation for the plan. The higher that is, the more their attack bonus will be on the initial attack. And then the other blue bar next to the shovel and shield is their entrenchment. If we were trying to have a defensive line, this would be more important, but since we're going to attack, it is the plan preparation that we care about. So now that pretty much everybody has full preparation, we're ready to go. If the enemy attacks you while you're preparing, that can cause issues with them getting full preparation, but they're not attacking us too much, so we'll get ready to play this out. And the reason that I had them exercising away from the front line was because if they get attacked while exercising, they don't have that stamina to fight, and they also stop gaining experience from exercising for that duration of that fight. Before we attack, up at the top you can see we have this green factory with an exclamation mark. That means we have military factory. One of them was completed. We need to assign it something to produce. I'm going to go to infantry equipment and just do another stack of 5, so that way that factory will be used in the next 4. Our political power, we have 162. Now we can start filling out some of these other positions. These top 3 portraits. For political advisors, we're going to choose the silent workhorse. That one increases our political power gain. So it's a pretty good no-brainer for starting point. Let's go back to our armies now that any important notifications are taken care of. And we're going to take our 2, for what I have set up, our 2 rightmost armies and change the aggressiveness. On these, by default, they're set to a balanced execution of the battle plan. We need to click on that little arrow icon and increase it to aggressive. That way all the units are attacking it for once, and do that on both of those armies. That just adds a lot more pressure more quickly. So here in the south, I'm going to fine tune things a little bit. I'm going to tell this general to attack aggressively, and I'm doing that to try to pin the enemy where they are. And then I hit the little go arrow in order to tell him to go. With this other general, I want to be a little more refined. So I'm selecting this tank division down here, press and holding shift. I'm going to take that cavalry and the other tank and cavalry here in those tiles. I'm going to right click on this tile adjacent. Then I'm going to right click here, 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 here. And what I'm trying to do is get encirclements around these units to the south. And I'm going to take this tank that's over here. I'm going to press and hold, I'm going to right click to this tile first, and then I'm going to press and hold shift and go up here, here, here. And it's important after clicking that first tile that you press and hold shift so that the commands are queued up, because if I click in this tile first and then I click here, that's fine. But if I go here, you can see that all of a sudden he's attacking a different tile. So order of operations can be important. And then I'm also going to hit this activate button or play button on him in order to have, once units get bogged down, I want them just to attack and try to bog down the enemy. And then in the north, I'm just going to hit the play buttons on those, and then we're going to unpause it and let it play out. And since that's complete, we'll pause and go to the next one. Mechanical computing is a pretty safe research item, since that will increase your research speed. And we'll just let this play out a little bit. So pause and pick another national focus. Head straight down towards expanding the university. You can see we're having a little bit too much success up here, so I am going to refocus all these units because I still want to encircle the enemy if possible. And that will work. I'm going to take these 2 units and have them attack here to pin down that enemy. And that's too much power. You can see we got that green. The green means we're winning easily. And I don't want to win that. I just want to bog them down. So I reassigned one of those divisions to attack northward. When a division is attacked, they get pinned so they can't move. I'm really just trying to pin down these 2 units in order to get my units in the north moving quickly around. And let's let that play out. Ethiopia should surrender quickly. We're actually defeating them faster than my units can move. I'll take these 3 and I'm going to press and hold shift. Just kind of try to get them to encircle something, but I don't know if Ethiopia will last long enough for me to get any encirclements. Okay, so after basic machine tools, you kind of have a choice between concentrated industry and dispersed industry. Concentrated industry is better unless you're going to be bombed by bombers quite a bit. So I'm going to go with concentrated industry because I'm optimistic. And we'll just kind of let this play out because it's an easy battle, so you don't have to micromanage it. You can see now my units are starting to encircle them, which is a great opportunity to talk about supply real quick. So down in the bottom right, there's that little icon with a couple crates. It's so small you can barely see it. If you click on that, you get a supply heat map. And this looks at our own supply, which you can see we have really bad supply where we have all these units stacked up and they're far away from ports or other resource hubs. These little crate icons is what the resource hubs are. But basically what it does show if you hover over Ethiopia is it shows their supply. They have their main supply in their capital, this one over on the right. But they don't have anything over here on the left. So if you look at how bad our supply is, I'm kind of doing the same thing to these units that I have that I'm starting to encircle in the south. I'm trying to make it so they can't get any supply so I can easily overwhelm them. And they just recaptured an area, which is fine because they can't stop my units anyways. So I took one of my tanks and told them to go do some of these other tiles to kind of cut off supply there too. Let's grab another national focus real quick for the universities. Then more research. Radio's a good one because it enhances reinforcement. So we'll let this play out some more. At this point, you really can't lose this battle. Okay, now you can see that I have cut off some of the Ethiopian units from the capital. So these ones over here on the left can't get resupplied, so they're easy to crush. And then when they get defeated, they are completely lost by Ethiopia. I guess we didn't complete it fast enough, but that's fine. excavation 1's pretty safe. We can use this opportunity. I'm going to justify a war goal on Yugoslavia, and that's for what I'm going to do after Ethiopia. That isn't necessarily part of the tutorial at all. Going back to the political part, let's see what we have. So we'll choose the Army Morale Expert. So if we focus over the Army Maneuver Expert is ideal, but we're not going to complete a Bandits War Focus, so we're going to take Army Morale because he's the only expert left. And that will allow us to get this Army Experience up on the top, the green star. We're also going to click on this Officer Corps icon in the menu. You can see we have options. We're going to click on the rightmost one for Spirited Division Command. And we're going to choose Flexible Organization. That'll increase our movement speed. And we'll just let this play out. Shouldn't be too much longer. It's just our troops don't have very good supply. Definitely a slow way to defeat Ethiopia, and if you micromanage, it should be much, much faster. But it is a tutorial. So now here we are selecting what to do with Ethiopia. The easiest thing to do under Make Demands would be just hit down on this and select all, and this territory then becomes Italy. With World War II, you don't necessarily want to do that. It's better to puppet them, because then during World War II, they don't enter the fray unless you request them to, and they will still give you benefits being a puppet. So we're going to click on this puppet icon. We're going to select all, and we're just going to keep Ethiopia as one whole puppet. You could break them up into smaller ones, but I'd rather keep it as one. And then down here, you have additional demands. We're going to click on Add Resource Rights, the little resources. We're just going to hit Stack On, and then War Reparation, click on that and Stack On. And then we're going to submit the demands. And since we're the only person on this right-hand side, we can go ahead and click Confirm and Exit. If there was a bunch of different nations involved, then you'd have to go through different rounds of back and forth. Okay, so now they are our puppet. And the last thing that this tutorial wants you to do is move 4 divisions to this port up here. And, well, before I lose it, I'm going to click on my field marshal, click on this little icon, and add charismatic. What I'm doing is spending some of this command power that we build up over time. I'm going to go to my navy, go to my admirals. This is my submarine admiral, yeah. I'm going to give him Lancer, and then Pedo Expert, since he's dealing with submarines. Go to the other one. And I want Safety First and Crisis Magician. And that spent down my command power for a while. Let's just see these units move really slow in the mountains. There they go. Okay, now that we have that extra research point, we can branch out into some other things. I would recommend staying away from the core of this a little bit until you get a better idea of what you're doing, because it starts unlocking the balance of power and dealing with replacing Mussolini and different war goals. A simpler way of playing is to stay on this left area, build up your military, and, well, for now I'm going to take army primacy because we get a lot of military factories for 35 days. But you can stay on that left side and then manually do the war goals on countries. This one kind of determines whether or not you want to be supportive of Germany, kind of going down that path. We will not risk anything for them because we want Germany to consume them so we have a direct border with them. And let's get this our new research slot utilized. Artillery is pretty safe. And we can choose, I want a Chief of Air Force because I want to start gaining Air Force experience, and then also Naval. Italy doesn't really have my favorites, so I'm not really too concerned of who I'm picking as long as I'm getting that experience. So to finish up this tutorial, now that these divisions are here at this port, we can go up to Italy, and you see that we kind of have these areas glowing. We can right click and go back and see that they get on a ship and move. However, that's really pointless because I can choose the whole army group and then hit this area defense and then click there, or I could draw a front line somewhere and they'll automatically start moving out. So you don't have to manually move your troops from port to port. And let's kind of end it with that for that port, the tutorial proper. Barely scratched the surface of anything. There's so much to this game, it takes hundreds of hours to get a decent understanding of it.